everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into something pretty fascinating. We're going behind the scenes at WikiLeaks.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah, you know them for the headlines, the big leaks, all that. But have you ever thought about how people actually get information to them?
Not really. I
Yeah.
guess I always figured someone just kind of emailed it to them or something.
Oh, it's way more complicated than that. We're talking serious cloak and dagger stuff. We're going to be looking at their Vault 8 release, which actually gives us some insight into how they receive information securely and secretly.
Vault 8.
Yep, Vault 8. It's a whole trove of documents, and get this, source code that WikiLeaks put out there. Gives us a glimpse of how they operate, how they protect their sources. It's like peeking behind the curtain of an organization that's known for, well, secrecy.
So, like, how to be a digital spy.
Pretty much. Okay, let's set the stage. Imagine you've got something huge to leak. We're talking incriminating documents, proof of wrongdoing, the kind of stuff that could bring down powerful people.
Okay, I'm imagining.
Now, you can't just email that, right? Too risky. So how do you do it without getting caught?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, that's what we're going to find out. And believe me, the answer's way more complex than just hitting send.
I bet.
So let's start with the basics. WikiLeaks has this whole system built for anonymity.
Anonymity, right.
It can handle massive files, complex data sets, all while protecting the source's identity. Think top-level security. And one of their key tools, Tor.
Tor, okay. I've heard of that.
I've heard the name too, but
Yeah.
honestly, it always sounded kind of intimidating.
Yeah, like something only super hackers use.
Exactly. So what is it exactly? Can you break it down for us?
Sure. So imagine you're trying to track someone in a crowded city.
Lots of people, hard to keep an eye on one person.
Right. Now imagine that everyone is wearing a disguise.
Okay, getting trickier.
And the streets are like a maze, constantly shifting. That's kind of what Tor does. It bounces your internet traffic all over the world, making it virtually impossible to trace back to you.
So it's not just about hiding what you're sending, it's like hiding that you're sending anything at all.
Exactly. Like a digital disappearing act.
I like that. Digital disappearing act. Now, for sources who are really high risk, like whistleblowers facing serious consequences, WikiLeaks goes a step further. They recommend something called Tails OS.
Tails OS.
Yeah, have you ever heard of it?
I think so, but I'm not really sure what it is.
Okay, so picture this. It's an operating system, but get this, you run it directly from a USB stick. And when you shut down, it erases everything you did. Poof, gone.
Wow, that's pretty hardcore.
It is. And all your internet traffic is routed through Tor, so you've got double the protection.
Double the protection, huh? So it's like a secret agent's computer.
It practically is. And to really emphasize how serious this is, they even advise you to use a separate computer and a separate USB stick, not the ones you use every day.
Smart. So you're not leaving any traces on your regular stuff.
Exactly. It's like stepping into this whole other world with its own rules and
A
tools.
whole separate digital world.
Exactly. But it's not just about the tech. WikiLeaks also has this whole set of tips for sources. A lot of it is about human behavior, psychology.
Oh, that's interesting. Like what?
Well, one thing they really stress is not telling anyone about your submission, not even your family or closest friends.
Ah, yeah. Loose lips sink ships, right?
Exactly, especially in this line of work. And another thing they highlight is the importance of acting normal.
Acting normal.
Yep, even if you're not in immediate danger, maintaining your routine, not suddenly changing your behavior is crucial. Anything out of the ordinary could raise suspicions.
That's smart. Don't give anyone a reason to notice you.
Exactly. And of course, then there's the whole issue of erasing any evidence from your computer and any flash drives you use.
Yeah, you don't want to leave any digital fingerprints behind.
Right. WikiLeaks actually provides detailed instructions on how to do this securely. It's not as simple as just dragging files to the trash bin.
I bet. Data recovery is a real thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They even emphasize properly destroying any flash media you've used, like physically destroying it, because just deleting files isn't always enough.
Wow, they really don't mess around.
They don't. The stakes are just too high for these sources. It's good to know that there are organizations out there like the Courage Foundation that can help.
The Courage Foundation.
Yeah, they provide legal support and other resources for sources who might face legal action or other repercussions for leaking information.
It's good that there's some kind of safety net out there.
Definitely. Okay, so we've talked about how to get information to WikiLeaks. But now let's shift gears a bit and talk about one of the biggest leaks they've ever released. Vault 8.
Vault 8. That's one about the CIA, right?
That's the one. This was all about exposing the CIA's secret tools. But here's the thing, they didn't release anything that could be directly used for harm.
So it was about transparency, not causing chaos.
Exactly. It was about letting the public know what kind of capabilities their government had developed.
Makes sense.
One of the most fascinating things they exposed was this system called Hive. It was basically a system for controlling malware.
Malware. Isn't that like viruses and stuff?
Basically. So imagine you've managed to get your malware onto a target's computer. Now, how do you communicate with it? Send instructions, get stolen data, all without getting caught.
Sounds tricky.
That's where Hive comes in. It was designed to solve that problem. It was like a remote control for digital spies.
Wow, I never thought about it like that.
But here's the really wild part. Hive didn't operate from some shadowy server in a hidden bunker. They actually used everyday websites hosted on regular commercial servers.
Wait, so it was hiding in plain sight?
Exactly. It's a classic tactic. These websites looked and acted like normal websites. You wouldn't have suspected a
Yeah.
thing. But hidden within their code was this feature called optional client authentication.
Optional client authentication. That sounds complicated.
It is kind of technical, but think of it like a secret handshake. Only the CIA's malware and their servers knew the handshake. Regular users browsing the site wouldn't even notice anything unusual.
So like a secret communication channel, hidden in plain view.
Precisely. And to make things even more deceptive, they even used fake certificates, sometimes even impersonating legitimate companies like, get this, Kaspersky Lab.
Kaspersky, isn't that antivirus software?
It is. So imagine a target company sees some suspicious traffic, but it looks like it's going to Kaspersky. They might just assume it's legitimate security activity, but really it's the CIA.
That's pretty sneaky.
It is. But here's what I find most intriguing. WikiLeaks didn't just describe these tools, they released the actual source code.
The source code, why would they do that?
Well, it's kind of a big deal. Releasing the code allowed independent experts to analyze it, verify WikiLeaks claims, and really understand how these tools worked.
So they were basically saying, don't just take our word for it, look for yourselves.
Exactly. It was a powerful statement about transparency. And you know what? Before we move on, I'm curious, what stood out to you so far?
I think what's really hit me is just how sophisticated this all is. We're not talking about kids in their basements anymore. This is government level stuff.
I know, right? It's kind of scary when you think about it, but also fascinating.
It really is. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like,
Right.
we're peeking into a whole other world, this digital spy world that most of us never even knew existed.
I know, right? And releasing the source code, that just takes it to a whole other level. It's like they're saying, hey, don't just trust us, see for yourselves.
Exactly. They're putting the evidence right out there for anyone to examine. Anyone who wants to dig in can see exactly how these tools work.
So not just for tech experts.
Well, it definitely helps to have some technical knowledge, sure. But the beauty of it is there are so many resources out there now. Websites, online forums, even entire communities dedicated to analyzing these leaks, breaking down the code into plain English.
So even someone like me, who's not exactly a coding whiz, could still learn something from these releases.
Absolutely. You don't have to be a master programmer to understand the implications of this stuff. And there are tons of people out there who can help explain it all. It's actually pretty amazing to see how many people are diving in and trying to make sense of it all.
It's like this whole collective effort to understand what's really going on behind the scenes.
It is. It's a reminder that we don't have to rely solely on governments or official channels for information. We can investigate and analyze and come to our own conclusions.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the technical side of things, the code and the tools and all that. But I think it's important to remember the human side of this too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's easy to get lost in the technical details, but we can't forget that these tools, these lines of code, they have a real impact on people's lives. Real people are being targeted with this stuff.
It's easy to forget that when you're talking about ones and zeros.
Right, but we have to remember that people's privacy is being violated. Their communications are being intercepted. Their lives could be disrupted or even endangered by these tools. It's serious stuff.
It's a good reminder that we're not just talking about abstract concepts here. This is real life.
Exactly, and it's important to remember that the targets aren't always criminals or terrorists. Sometimes they're journalists, activists, political dissidents, anyone who might be considered a threat to those in power.
So it's not just about national security, it's about controlling information, controlling dissent.
You could say that. It raises some serious questions about the balance of power in our digital age. If governments have access to these incredibly powerful tools, what's to stop them from being abused?
It's a scary thought. We all want to be safe, but not at the expense of our basic freedoms.
Exactly. And that's why this conversation is so important. We need to be aware of these tools and their capabilities and their potential for misuse.
So what can we do about it? It feels like we're just tiny little boats being tossed around on this giant ocean of data.
Well, the first step is awareness, like what we're doing right now. Understanding the tools and the techniques being used, and recognizing the potential threats to our privacy and knowing our rights.
Knowledge is power, as they say.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's where organizations like WikiLeaks come in. They're providing us with the information we need to make informed decisions and hold those in power accountable.
So supporting organizations like WikiLeaks, engaging in these conversations, demanding greater transparency from our governments, those are all important steps we can take.
Exactly. It's not just about protecting ourselves. It's about protecting the very principles of democracy, freedom of speech, the right to privacy. Those are all at stake here.
It feels like a lot of responsibility. What can one person really do?
Well, for one, we can refuse to be passive bystanders. We can stay informed. We can speak out against injustice, and we can support the organizations that are fighting for our rights. Every voice makes a difference.
Okay, I like that. Small actions can add up to big change. So we've talked a lot about the CIA and their tools, but wasn't there also some stuff in Vault 8 about WikiLeaks themselves? Aren't they pretty secretive about how they operate?
There is a certain irony there, isn't there? But yes,
Okay.
Vault 8 actually included a guide on how to contact WikiLeaks securely. It outlines steps that sources can take to protect their anonymity and ensure their information gets to the organization safely.
So even though they're exposing the secrets of others, they're still very concerned about protecting their own sources and methods.
Absolutely. And it makes sense. They're dealing with incredibly sensitive information. Their sources often face enormous risks. They have a responsibility to protect the people who come to them.
It's a reminder that even organizations dedicated to transparency need a certain level of secrecy to operate effectively.
Especially in the digital age where every communication can potentially be intercepted and analyzed. It's a constant game of cat and mouse.
So how do they do it? How do they keep their sources safe?
Well, they use a lot of the same tools and techniques that we've been discussing.
Yeah.
Tor, encryption, secure drop sites, things like that. But they also rely heavily on trust. Their sources have to trust that WikiLeaks will protect their identities and handle their information responsibly.
That's a huge leap of faith for those sources. They're basically putting their lives in WikiLeaks' hands.
They are, and that's why WikiLeaks goes to such lengths to ensure their security. They have a proven track record of protecting their sources, even under intense pressure.
It's an incredible story, really. This whole world of whistleblowers and leaks and digital secrets. It's like something out of a spy thriller, but it's happening right now, all around us.
It is, and it's only going to get more complex as technology advances. We're just at the tip of the iceberg, really.
So what else did you find in your deep dive into Vault 8? Any other shocking revelations or intriguing details?
Honestly, one of the things that really struck me was just the sheer variety of tools the CIA has developed. It's not just about hacking computers or intercepting messages or any of that. They've got tools for practically anything you can imagine.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, they've got tools for manipulating social media, creating fake news articles, even planting evidence on someone's device.
Wait, hold on. Fake news articles, planting evidence. That sounds like, I don't know, some kind of dystopian sci-fi movie or something. Is that even legal?
Well, it's important to remember that what WikiLeaks released were more like blueprints, not actual proof of how they used all these things. So we know what they can do, but not necessarily what they did do. You know what I mean?
Okay, so it's more about potential versus actual use. But still, it's kind of unsettling to know they even have the capability.
It definitely raises some serious questions about how much power these agencies should have. And that's exactly why transparency and oversight are so important. We need to be able to have open and honest discussions about these capabilities, what safeguards are in place, what are the consequences if they're misused, all of that.
It's such a tricky balance, isn't it? Because obviously we want to be kept safe from real threats, but not at the cost of our basic freedoms and privacy.
Exactly. It's a debate that's happening all over the world right now.
Yeah.
How do we strike that balance? How do we make sure the tools meant to keep us safe don't end up getting turned against us?
Yeah, it feels like one of those questions with no easy answers. But I guess ignoring it isn't really an option either.
Definitely not. Complacency is the enemy here.
Yeah.
We need to stay informed and ask tough questions and demand accountability from our leaders. Because this isn't someone else's problem. This is something that affects all of us.
Well said. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about WikiLeaks, Vault 8, the CIA's secret toolkit, the whole cat and mouse game of leaks and surveillance. It's been quite a journey. So as we wrap up, what are some key takeaways you'd want our listeners to walk away with?
Hmm. I think the biggest takeaway is that we live in a world where surveillance is becoming more and more common. And there are some incredibly powerful tools out there that can be used for good or for bad. So it's really up to each of us to stay informed, to ask those tough questions, and to demand transparency from the people in power.
Couldn't agree more. Knowledge is power, especially in this digital age, and we need to understand these tools, what the risks are, and how to protect ourselves.
Exactly. And don't forget, this isn't just about abstract ideas. It's about real people, real lives, and the future of our societies.
That's such an important point. Well, this has been a truly eye-opening conversation, to say the least. And for anyone listening who wants to learn more, wants to kind of do their own deep dive, we've included links to the WikiLeaks website and the Vault 8 releases in the show notes.
Don't be afraid to jump in and explore for yourselves. The more we understand these tools and these techniques, the better equipped we'll be to navigate this whole crazy digital world and, protect those freedoms that we all value so much.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of WikiLeaks and Vault 8. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.